Ladies and gentlemen, dear Attorney General, ambassadors, representatives of the US administration, dear colleagues and friends, Шановна громада, we are pleased to welcome you today at Ukraine House to celebrate together the Constitution Day of Ukraine. My name is Oksana. I'm a counselor of the Embassy for Legal Affairs, and I would be happy to moderate today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, on June 28, 1996, the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine adopted the Constitution of Ukraine. It was a pivotal moment in our history, which provided the foundation for a democratic, independent, and sovereign state. It has guided Ukraine through its post-Soviet transition, ensuring stability, protecting rights, and promoting development. The Constitution set forth the principles of democratic governance, including the separation of powers, checks and balances, and the protection of fundamental human rights and freedoms. Today, the Constitution is not only our fundamental law. It defines the choice of Ukrainian people for European and Euro-Atlantic integration. It is a symbol of Ukrainian resilience, which our best and women fight for. With that, I would like to open the official program of the event and pass the floor to our distinguished speakers. I would like to invite to the stage our first speaker, Ambassador Oksana Markarova. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Attorney General, dear Yuri Kim, dear Judge Futey, dear ambassadors, so many of you, dear friends, everyone who came despite of this hot weather. Thank you so much for joining us for this celebration. Who heard me before, and my team knows that this holiday is a very special day for me personally. Our constitution was supposed to be adopted on the 27th of June. And it would be very symbolic because on the 27th of June, actually 60 years ago today, the monument of Taras Shevchenko was opened here in Washington, D.C. And it was a big event for all Ukrainian Hromada, but not only. But then the deliberations continued all night, and it was adopted in the morning of 28th. And we in Ukraine sometimes joke that that's because 28th is a birthday for Judge Futey, who of course worked on that constitution very tirelessly with the parliamentarians at that time. Now, this constitution is our fifth constitution. The first one being Philip Orlik's constitution of 1710, as early as then. The second was the Ukrainian National Republic constitution of 1918, followed then by the Western Ukrainian Republic Constitution, later on in 1918, then Carpathian Ukraine Constitution in 1939, and then finally our current fifth constitution, which we honor and live by today. Now, all these previous constitutions have one thing in common before this one, is that we did not have the opportunity and possibility to defend them so that we had our statehood. And the 1710, but all of them actually were trailblazing legal documents at the times when they have been adopted. So 1710 Constitution is literally the first constitution which had the separation of power and the private property rights in it. It was written just 2 years after Ukrainian state at that time, together with Swedish king and together with small Finnish battalion, unfortunately lost in 1708 to Russia. And our capital, Baturin, fell. All residents of Baturin have been killed by Russians, something like we have seen during this horrible war. And this constitution was written by Philip Orlik when he was already in exile. Now, the constitution of 1918, again, we were able to adopt it as a state already, Ukrainian National Republic, because the 1917 presented again a window of opportunity for Ukrainians to become independent. And we grabbed that opportunity, and Ukraine became independent. And we had our constitution, which had several, again, trailblazing features in it, on top of what was used from the Philip Constitution. The Article 14 of that Constitution of 1918 said the Constitution recognizes no difference whatsoever between rights and responsibilities of women and men. It was in 1918, 26 years before France, and actually 53 years before Switzerland, Ambassador. Also, it had a very detailed provision on the national minorities' rights, and the first money that were printed in Ukrainian National Republic were not only written in Ukrainian, but also in Polish, Yiddish, and Russian at that time. And it was a beautiful European constitution, but its fate was not that much different from the fate of the 1710 constitution, because the same neighbor, Russians, again realized their imperialistic intentions, and Ukraine was again occupied by the Soviet Union for a very long time. Now, in 1991, when finally we became independent and realized our right to live in our own country, with 92% of citizens voting for it, we started working on the Constitution, and in 1996, in 9 a.m. in the morning approximately, we adopted the Constitution, which not only took the previous constitutions and the best from it, but also best examples from what existed in the legal field in the 20th century. And that's because we worked with so many exceptional American experts on it, including Judge Futey, including Steve Nicks, who I don't see in the audience, including everyone International Foundation for Election System then brought to Ukraine, so that our document, which starts pretty much like American document, We the People, but ours say the parliament on behalf of Ukrainian people of all nationalities, had also all the features of this European, independent, sovereign Ukraine that we started building in 1991. Now, I said it's a personal story for me, because my first work ever was the International Foundation for Election Systems, and I had the privilege to work with Judge Futey and with good team working on the Constitution, and during that night I was on the balcony of the Verkhovna Rada of the Parliament, watching the deliberations and then watching the document being passed. At that time, being a young professional, I probably did not realize the full historic meaning of that. But with every day, every year that followed, and all the fights that we have been through, we all realized how important it is to have the Constitution, to fight for it. Now, Article 65 of our Constitution today says, defense of the motherland, of its independence, the territorial integrity of Ukraine, and respect for its state symbols are the duties or responsibilities of all citizens of Ukraine. And today, when for 855 days we fight for our homes, for our loved ones, for our freedom, for our independence, for our territorial integrity, we also fight for our Constitution and for the right to have one, and for the right to live by this Constitution, by us, by our children, and by all the generations of Ukrainians to come. And unlike in 1710 or 1911, 1918, we are not alone in this fight this time. And the number of our friends, compared to those occasions, is so much bigger and wider. It's 154 countries that voted to condemn Russian aggression at the UN. It's more than 50 countries that get together on a monthly basis at the Ukraine Contact Defense Group, Ramstein so-called group, to help us with our defense. It's all the G7 and more than 18 countries now that signed bilateral security agreements to help us in our defense. It's 100 countries that came to the Global Peace Summit in Switzerland, and the number of countries that are joining is growing. And most importantly, our strategic friend number one, United States of America. Thank you so much, President Zelensky, all the people of Ukraine are so grateful for all the support that we have received during these difficult years and before, but especially during these difficult years of full-fledged war. And we are grateful to everyone, to President Biden and his administration, to Congress on a very strong bipartisan basis. And we will have some members of Congress joining us today, but they're still voting, so they will join as soon as they can. everyone in the cabinet, but especially to our colleagues, the Secretary Blinken and the State Department, to work with us, and especially big thank you to Attorney General Merrick Garland, to you and all your team, and your personal leadership in, thank you, personal leadership fighting for justice. Because this time around is not just important for all of us to get to peace. Nobody wants peace more than Ukrainians. But it has to be lasting and just peace. And this fight for justice is as important for winning the war as it is for actually getting back to international order and justice, not just for Ukraine, but for all of us. So I speak not only from Prosecutor General Kostin and his team, who I know value the partnership so much, but from every Ukrainian and me personally. Again, thank you. And of course, today we are thanking our American friends and our international partners, European colleagues, but beyond Europe also. But we are also asking you to do more and to stay the course with us and to help us with everything you can in defense, in economic development, in recovery, so that this time around in the history of Ukraine, we together can actually win. And this time, this is going to be the constitution that we will keep celebrating the date of its adoption without any interruptions in our statehood, because we will defend this time. So God bless America and Slava Ukraini!
Thank you, Ambassador. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my honor and pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker, a great friend of Ukraine, Attorney General of United States, Merrick Garland. No, please, I just wanted to introduce After visiting Ukraine in 2022, Merrick Garland launched several special units at the Department of Justice, which have been providing important assistance to Ukraine in documenting and investigating Russian war crimes. Attorney General appointed prominent American lawyer and prosecutor, well known as Nazi hunter Eli Rosenbaum, to lead the War Crime Accountability Team, which have been in touch with the Prosecutor General Office of Ukraine on a daily basis. I would like to thank Eli, who is running late. And I also would like to greet here Mr. Bruce Schwartz, Deputy Assistant Attorney General, who coordinates assistance to Ukraine at DOJ. Thank you. Merrick Garland also established Klepto Capture Task Force, which consolidates global efforts in confiscation assets of Russian oligarchs and already transferred 5.4 million of Russian oligarchs Malafeyev to Ukraine. Under the lead of Merrick Garland, the US Department of Justice supported adaptation of a new historic legislation, which made possible to prosecute Russian war criminals, and appointed US prosecutor to the International Center for Prosecution and the Crime of Aggression in Hague. Attorney General, thank you so much for everything you do in supporting Ukraine. Please, floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Alexander. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you so much for inviting me today. Your tireless work on behalf of Ukraine is an inspiration to all of us. You're a champion for your country, and our country is grateful for your partnership. Tomorrow will make 28 years since Ukraine's constitution declared Ukraine sovereign and independent. It will mark the third Constitution Day spent under bombardment from Russia in its relentless, unprovoked war of aggression against that independence. In the face of unimaginable horrors at the hands of Russian forces, the people of Ukraine have demonstrated unimaginable courage. Our counterparts in the Office of the Prosecutor General have worked relentlessly to open investigations into Russia's war crimes and to track down and prosecute defendants under the law. They have sought to uncover the full truth of the crimes committed against the Ukrainian people. At the same time, they are planning for a future beyond this war, a future with the rule of law at its foundation. The Justice Department is honored to stand with you. In December, the Justice Department filed historic charges against 4 Russia-affiliated military personnel for heinous crimes committed against an American citizen in Ukraine. These were the first ever charges under the U.S. War Crimes Statute. Our work has not stopped there. Just yesterday, we unsealed an indictment charging a Russian citizen for conspiring with Russian military intelligence to launch cyber attacks against the Ukrainian government on the eve of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. We also allege that he later targeted United States allies and the United States. We are continuing to investigate war crimes that fall within our jurisdiction and to coordinate with our Ukrainian partners to support their investigations of Russian war crimes. We are working with our international partners to ensure accountability for Russian war crimes and crimes against humanity. We are freezing and seizing assets of Russia's enablers and working to deprive the Russian defense industry of key technologies and critical Western components. We are using all of our legal tools to ensure the Russian perpetrators of aggression, war crimes, and crimes against humanity in Ukraine do not get away with them. And we are standing with the people of Ukraine as they seek justice and freedom. The world has watched as the people of Ukraine have fought back against Russian aggression. Your resolve has changed history. Your courage has inspired us all. The United States is proud to stand with you today and every day. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you, Attorney General. It's my privilege to introduce our next speaker, Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Europe and Eurasian Affairs, Yuri Kim, who is a distinguished diplomat with a remarkable career dedicated to advancing peace, security and prosperity in Europe and Eurasia. It was another busy month for Yuri Kim and the whole State Department and the Embassy, which resulted in a number of important initiatives. 2 meetings of our presidents, participation of Vice President Kamala Harris in Peace Formula Summit in Switzerland, important announcements on reinforcement Ukraine's defense, sanctions against Russia, is a result of a great work you do. Thank you so much for everything, for your devotion and dedication to strengthening Ukraine's resilience. Please, the floor is yours.
Ambassador Markarova, esteemed guests, Attorney General, thank you very much. It's my great honor to be here today to represent Secretary Blinken as we celebrate the 28th anniversary of Ukraine's constitution and the fundamental rights and principles it enshrines. Article 1 states that Ukraine is a sovereign and independent, democratic, and law-based state. And all of us here today know the sacrifices the Ukrainian people have made to uphold that vision, defending it against incredible odds, against Russia's aggression, and safeguarding this wonderful country for the future. That vision is why the Ukrainian people came out to Maidan in 2004. It's why they came out again in 2014. And it's why they're united and fighting in full force today. They refused to accept Russia's invasion of the Donbass and purported annexation of Crimea in 2014. They continue to fight tenaciously against Russia's brutal full-scale invasion since 2022. Ukraine has taken the hard but necessary steps to forge its own path away from the malign and repressive model of authoritarian Russia. Ukrainians have chosen a democratic future. They've reformed key judicial governance bodies, swiftly removed officials implicated in corruption schemes, and served as a good steward of international assistance. We're encouraged by the progress made to date and by Ukraine's ambitious plans ahead. I'm also proud that the United States stands with Ukraine in its fight to defend its people and its democracy. We support, moreover, your future. We support your efforts to reach your rightful place in the Euro-Atlantic family of nations. Earlier this year in Normandy, I think all of us saw the images. President Biden with President Zelensky connecting the heroes of the past with the heroes of today. The fight for freedom, then, today, always. The Ukrainian people have never yielded in the face of brutality. They've refused to be subjugated, and in doing so, they have become a bulwark for the free and democratic world. The United States and NATO and a coalition of more than 50 countries are standing strong with you. And as President Biden said, we will not walk away, we will not bow down, and we will never forget. Today, as we reflect on Ukraine's constitution, we recognize the aspirations of the Ukrainian people for a free future of freedom, justice, and security. The American people stand shoulder to shoulder with the Ukrainian people in their pursuit of this bright future. Together, we'll continue to uphold the values of liberty, justice, and the rule of law that underpin our strategic partnership now and always. Thank you very much. Slava Ukraini.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my special pleasure to introduce our next speaker, prominent Ukrainian-American lawyer, senior judge of the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, and former president of the Ukrainian-American Bar Association, Judge Bogdan Futey. Judge Bogdan Futey was a key advisor in the drafting of Constitution of Ukraine, bringing his extensive experience and expertise to bear on his critical task. His insights on human rights, judicial independence, and the separation of powers have been foundational to many of the provisions in our Constitution. Today we have a unique opportunity to hear from a person whose contribution to the creation of our fundamental law has been pivotal. Please welcome our esteemed guest. The floor is yours.
Oh, large crowd, my goodness. Madam Ambassador, Attorney General, it's indeed a pleasure to be in your presence here for all legal work that you're doing for the United States of America. Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the opportunity to be part of this celebration, the 28th anniversary of Ukraine's Constitution. Allow me also to point out, as was mentioned already, that this year is very significant, is another very significant historical fact, because we're celebrating 34 years, 314 years of Ukrainian Cossack leader Philip Orlik's Constitution. It was adopted in 1710, almost 80 years before the Constitution of the United States of America. This basic law embodied the principles of separation of powers, a separate judicial system, tribunal, and the concept of private ownership of property at that time. Beginning in 1992, two commissions worked on the present constitution, one led by President Kravchuk and the other by President Kuchma. To assist the commissions in their task, there was also a working group chaired by Professor Leonid Yushko, of which I was a member. In an overnight session from June 27 through the 28th, 1996, the Verkhovna Rada, Ukrainian parliament, debated and eventually passed the constitution by 315 votes. With the adoption of its constitution on June 28, 1996, Ukraine took yet another step toward joining the community of democratic nations that place the rule of law and the free market economic system among the highest values. The process that culminated in the adoption of the Constitution was by no means solely one of agreement and harmony. Rather, as one might expect, the Constitution was born of compromise, as, for example, the vote for Ukrainian to be the state language and keeping the name of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. The finalized Constitution addressed the concerns of Ukrainians about their national interest, the establishment of their statehood, as well as remediation of the suppression of rights by the Soviet Union, and at the same time, what kind of social changes a democratic future would bring. The Constitution was commended by a number of international organizations, including the Venice Commission, particularly for its guarantees of the many human rights. Clearly, even after 28 years, Ukraine's constitution still remains a work in progress. With every election of a new president, there is an attempt to amend or adopt a new constitution. Now, concerning Ukraine's present endurance against Russian aggression, on February 24, 22, under orders of Putin, they commenced a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Unfortunately, the country is going through an unprecedented invasion, aggression, war crimes, and genocide committed by the forces of the Russian Federation. Ukraine's complaint, filed with the International Court of Justice at The Hague, an institution of the United Nations, was partially granted on March 16, 2022. The ruling clearly and unequivocally ordered the Russian Federation to immediately suspend the military operation in Ukraine. The International Court of Justice issued this significant ruling in Ukraine's case against the Russian Federation under the Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. The convention was held in Paris in 1948. This decision is similar to the International Court of Justice decision on Bosnia and Herzegovina against Serbia and Montenegro in 2007, which means it is the state's responsibility to prevent genocide under Article 1 of the Convention. Also, a warrant of arrest has been issued by the International Criminal Court against Putin and Maria Belova, Children's Rights Commissioner for the President of the Russian Federation, for the unlawful transfer of children from one group, Ukraine, to another, the Russian Federation, to subject them to lingual and cultural Russification, which constitutes a form of genocide in accordance with the Genocide Convention. Now we are awaiting a decision. In addition, 2 days ago, on the 25th of June, the European Court of Human Rights has ruled that Russia committed human rights violations in the Crimean Peninsula since its annexation in 2014. Foreign leaders and scholars are calling the bloodshed all over Ukraine, as well as acts such as the Russification of kidnapped Ukrainian children, genocide. Genocide against Ukrainians must be stopped. The UN International Court of Justice has issued an order to stop the war, but the Russian Federation is not obeying it and scoffs at the UN, which cannot meaningfully implement its own decision. The present international system is at a risk. The stakes are very high. Security and freedom depend on justice for Ukraine. The same can be said of Europe's security and freedom, as well as that of the free world. It is a crisis for all of us. Under its constitution, Ukraine has proven itself to be a democratic, rule of law country. Let me conclude by saying that most world leaders have been commenting on. President Volodymyr Zelensky's able leadership in defending his country from the horrors of the war, such as the Russian Federation, such as indiscriminate military aggression, terrorist acts, war crimes, and genocide perpetrated by the Russian Federation. The fight is not only for the freedom and independence of Ukraine, but also for the safety and well-being of Europe and the rest of the free world. The armed forces of Ukraine are fighting not only for their own country's freedom from tyranny, but also Europe and the rest of the free world. Ukraine deserves to be a member state of the European Union and NATO. Finally, we should be happy that the latest G7 conference issued its clearest support for Ukraine's democracy, freedom, and territorial integrity. Also, for the provisions adopted at the Peace Conference in Switzerland. The free world, ladies and gentlemen, however, must be clear in its determination on behalf of Ukraine. Let us not forget what happened with the interpretation of the Budapest Memorandum in 1994. Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine, God bless America.
Can you stay on the stage, please? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite on the stage Ambassador of Ukraine, Oksana Markarova, for ceremony of presentation of the State Declaration of Ukraine. By the decree of the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, for significant personal contribution to state building, the socio-economic, scientific, technical and cultural educational development of the Ukrainian state, the strengthening of Ukraine's international authority, notable labor achievements and many years of diligent work, awarded Bogdan Futey, Senior Judge of the United States Court of Federal Claims, by Order of Merit, 1st grade.
Thank you. It's really a great surprise for me. But I must say one thing, that has been my pleasure and honor to work in the rule of law programs for the State Department of the United States with other countries of the world, but especially Ukraine, the country where I was born. So historically, to me, this is very much appreciated.
Thank you, Judge Futey. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, the Senate is in recess, but we were glad to receive a special message from Republican leader Mitch McConnell. I would like to invite you to watch it.
Hello, I'm Senator Mitch McConnell, and I'm proud to join you all in marking an important anniversary. It was 28 years ago that Ukraine charted a new course toward liberty and democracy, sovereignty, and self-determination. The people of a free nation adopted a new constitution and put the final nail in the coffin of Soviet-era imperial domination. I was fortunate to visit Kyiv in the early years following that historic step forward, and I was struck by the optimism of a free people charting a new course. Today is rightly a celebration of Ukraine's proud modern history of independence, but it's also a solemn occasion to remember the brave Ukrainians who've given their lives and the ones fighting today to bring yet another episode of brutal Russian aggression to an end. People of Ukraine don't need any reminders of the price of liberty and sovereignty. In fact, it is us, their friends in the West, who draw inspiration from the resolve of Ukraine's leaders, the selfless sacrifice of its frontline heroes, and the strength and endurance of its people. So my message to Ukraine today is one of solidarity. I stand firmly behind you, and I'll keep working to make sure America and our allies stay in your corner as you take back your right to a future of your own making.
Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite to the podium Executive Vice President of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America and Director of the Ukrainian National Information Service, Sawkiw.
Madam Ambassador, Attorney General Garland, esteemed ambassadors, members of Congress, if you're here, the Honorable Judge Futey, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. As mentioned, my name is Michael Sawkiw. I am the Executive Vice President of the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, the representative organization, umbrella organization of the Ukrainian American community. And as such, my organization, representing more than 2+ million Americans of Ukrainian descent, frequently recognizes and awards individuals who have demonstrated extraordinary efforts to defend democracy in Ukraine, preserve Ukraine's national identity, and who contribute to the enhancement of U.S. and Ukraine bilateral relations. This afternoon, I stand before you. Unfortunately, the president of my organization, Andrew Futey, is not available and traveling today, but I have the distinct honor and pleasure to present the UCCA's Defender of Democracy Award to an outstanding individual who has promoted a strong bipartisan approach in support of Ukraine's security needs in the wake of Russia's full-scale, unprovoked war against Ukraine that emanated 854 days ago. But this presentation is not only about the awardee's efforts for the defensive security needs of Ukraine, but inherently about the humanitarian needs of those devastated by the war, in particularly and most importantly, as was mentioned earlier today, about the plight of those Ukrainian children who have been kidnapped and abducted by Kremlin forces. Our awardee has become a staunch, unwavering voice for those voiceless victims. I believe I speak for everyone here present who understands that our children are the future. Our objective as a world society is rooted in the principles of democracy and values is to ensure a brighter and more peaceful place for the future generations to come. Such efforts to promote victory in Ukraine that will still instill a lasting and enduring peace is the inspiration for presenting the UCCA's Defender of Democracy Award. Thus, on this Constitution Day commemoration, a day dedicated to the tenets and foundation of democracies, what a fitting day to honor Her Excellency Oksana Markarova and her dedication in achieving a Ukrainian victory and a lasting peace in Ukraine. You are to be commended, Madam Ambassador, applauded as well as admired. The Ukrainian Congress Committee of America presents the Defender of Democracy Award to Her Excellency Oksana Markarova for her steadfast efforts in defending Ukraine's sovereignty and independence. Washington, D.C., 2024. Madam Ambassador.
Thank you. I already spoke too much today, but when you were talking, I was thinking, oh my God, who are you describing? What a wonderful person. We should get him to join our team. But as such, this goes to all my team because it's a team effort, and it goes to all Ukrainians who are fighting today in Ukraine on the battlefield, to young and not so young men and women in uniform, because of whom we actually can do what we do here. So thank you, and it's a big honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming close to the end of the official part of the event. Before starting a formal conversation with delicious food from Ukrainian restaurant Ruta, I would like to thank you and invite speakers to take a family photo outside the tent. Thank you so much for your attendance and have a great evening and celebration.